The core picture is clearer now. This is a years-long cross-border sewage and toxic air crisis, with prolonged shoreline closures, documented health complaints, and agencies still studying exposure while fixes lag. Contaminated water. Imperial Beach is being asked to live with the unlivable. Imperial Beach is the kind of place California usually sells as a dream, a small beach city on the southwestern edge of San Diego County, with miles of sand, a pier, surf history, a national estuarine reserve, and the Pacific on one side and Mexico just to the south. The city itself describes it as a classic Southern California beach town and a visitor-oriented community. People who have never heard of Imperial Beach should understand that this was supposed to be a place for ordinary families to live, work, go to school, and walk to the water. Instead, Imperial Beach has become a case study in what happens when governments let infrastructure fail and then ask a border community to absorb the damage. Since 2018, more than 100 billion gallons of raw sewage, industrial waste, and trash have poured into the Tijuana River, according to reporting based on International Boundary and Water Commission data. AP also reported that just since January 2026, 10 billion gallons of mostly raw sewage and industrial waste had crossed the border. The city's own FAQ says the Tijuana River itself regularly flows at more than 40 million gallons a day, and that this flow is not treated by the South Bay plant. While the city's pollution page says severe events can push contaminated flows into the hundreds of millions of gallons per day. That is not a nuisance. That is a sewage disaster on a scale most Americans would not tolerate for a week, let alone for years. And this is not only a water story. UC San Diego researchers found that the polluted river releases large quantities of hydrogen sulfide, with peak concentrations about 4,500 times typical urban levels, along with hundreds of other gases that degrade regional air quality. Another UC San Diego study found wastewater chemicals aerosolizing from the river and coastal waters, with higher pollution levels in water and air around Imperial Beach than in La Jolla. SDSU researchers have also documented more than 170 organic chemicals and inorganic elements in soil and sediment around the river and estuary, including PAHs, banned pesticides, PCBs, heavy metals, and phthalates. Water, air, and soil. The contamination is not staying politely in one place. The human toll is not speculative either. County of San Diego public health assessments found that 95% of respondents noticed a sewage smell in the previous 30 days, and 57% said it was severe. 64% reported at least one new or worsening physical health symptom they attributed to the crisis, and 31% of those reporting symptoms sought medical care. In the county's household assessment, 67.3% said the sewage crisis had made their household health worse. 69% reported at least one sewage-related health issue. 32.2% said they did not feel safe in their homes. 58.6% said they had changed daily activities or routines because of the crisis, and 68.5% said the crisis had disrupted at least one aspect of household life. At a certain point, calling this a water quality issue becomes dishonest. It is a public health emergency with a beach attached. Children are living inside this too. In March, CalMatters reported that students in Imperial Beach were dealing with headaches, asthma, rashes, and brain fog, linked to the sewage pollution and the hydrogen sulfide smell drifting off the estuary. The county's own survey found that among households reporting symptoms they believed were caused by the crisis, headaches were the most common, followed by nausea or upset stomach, cough, and dry or irritated throat. So when outsiders hear beach contamination, they should stop picturing a temporary swim advisory after a rainstorm. In Imperial Beach, the crisis follows children into neighborhoods, classrooms, and homes. The beach closures tell the story in the bluntest possible way. In September 2024, after 3 years of nearly continuous closures, most of the shoreline finally reopened, but the Tijuana Slough stretch remained closed because bacteria levels stayed high. Then in April 2026, county officials said the ocean along Imperial Beach remained closed from the international border through the northern end of Silver Strand because of ongoing sewage contamination. Imagine explaining that to someone who has never heard of the city. Yes, it is a beach town. No, its beach cannot be trusted. The ugliest part is that the cause is not mysterious. County and city documents point to failing infrastructure on the Mexico side, direct ocean discharges tied to the San Antonio de los Buenos system, a U.S.-operated South Bay wastewater plant burdened by deferred maintenance and inadequate capacity, and a binational governance regime so fragmented that everyone can acknowledge the problem while nobody solves it fast enough. A recent binational cleanup roadmap summarized the root causes as chronic infrastructure failures, insufficient operations and maintenance, and fractured cross-border governance. Imperial Beach is not cursed. It is being failed by systems that have had years to do better. Yes, there has been movement. EPA and the U.S. IBWC completed a 10 million gallon per day interim expansion at the South Bay plant in August 2025, and the first quarterly public update in November 2025 said planning was moving on an accelerated 50 milligram DAR expansion and related projects. In January 2026, San Diego County supervisors approved nearly $9 million for local mitigation, including a pipeline project, more air purifiers, and public health studies. The county's own 2026 plans still include exposure characterization, retrospective health review, and the possibility of a long-term epidemiology panel study. That is real progress. It is also a devastating indictment. Normal beach towns do not need air purifier giveaways and retrospective exposure studies to get through the year. The moral scandal is the normalization of all this. San Diego County has been renewing a local emergency since June 2023, and Imperial Beach says it has declared its own emergency as well. Yet the crisis still drags on in a form so chronic that officials now talk about it the way people talk about traffic or weather. AP noted that when a sewage spill hit the Potomac this year, it prompted federal intervention within weeks. South County residents, by contrast, have spent years living with foul air, contaminated water, and an economy warped by closures and reputational damage. Voice of San Diego reported business owners describing vanishing tourists, lost customers, decimated revenue, and near-empty sidewalks in a town built partly around visitors. That is not resilience. That is abandonment with PR attached. So no, this should not be sugarcoated. Imperial Beach is not simply dealing with a messy environmental issue. It is living through a long-running public health failure and a political disgrace. For people who have never heard of the city, here is the simplest way to understand it. Imagine a place famous for surf, sand, and sunsets, where the water can make you sick, the air can make you sick, the smell enters people's homes, children feel it at school, businesses bleed customers, and governments keep promising that the real fix is still a few more years away. That is Imperial Beach, and the fact that Americans have been expected to accept this for so long should shame everyone responsible. Recent reporting, AP News.